In the quiet town of Willow Creek, Officer Emily Miller was known for her sharp mind and dedication. She always wanted to make Willow Creek a better place. She was respected by her colleagues and admired by the community. But beneath her composed exterior lay a burning ambition, a desire to climb the ranks and prove herself. Recently, Willow Creek had been plagued by a series of burglaries. Homes and businesses were targeted, leaving residents feeling unsafe. The pressure on the police department, and especially on Officer Miller, was immense. She spent countless hours patrolling the streets, interviewing witnesses, and sifting through evidence. She was determined to catch the culprit and restore peace to Willow Creek. But time was running out, and the pressure was mounting. Emily knew she needed a break in the case, and soon. She just needed one good lead, something to point her in the right direction. Little did she know that desperation would lead her down a path. News of the break-in spread like wildfire. People were scared and angry. They gathered on street corners, whispering about the audacity of the thief. The local newspaper ran a front-page story with the headline, "Our Town Under Siege." The pressure on Officer Miller intensified. The town council held an emergency meeting demanding immediate action. Parents kept their children indoors, and shopkeepers locked their doors earlier. The sense of security that had once defined Willow Creek was shattered. The stolen music box became a symbol of the town's lost innocence. It was more than just a valuable item. It represented the memories and traditions of Willow Creek. Everyone felt violated, as if something precious had been taken from them. Emily knew that catching the thief and recovering the music box was crucial to restoring the town's faith and her own reputation. The clock was ticking. In her haste to find the culprit, Officer Miller's attention fell on Sarah Jenkins. Sarah was a young woman who had a few minor run-ins with the law in the past, petty theft, and a curfew violation. While she was trying to turn her life around, the old record stuck to her. The evidence linking Sarah to the antique store burglary was flimsy at best. A neighbor claimed to have seen someone vaguely resembling Sarah walking near the store late one night. But the description was unclear, and the witness wasn't entirely certain. There were no fingerprints or other concrete evidence connecting Sarah to the scene. But in Emily's mind, Sarah was a convenient suspect. She fit the profile of someone who might commit such a crime, and arresting her would bring a swift end to the investigation, satisfying the town's demand for justice. Despite the lack of solid evidence, Emily began to focus all her energy on Sarah. She interviewed her repeatedly, pressing her for information, trying to trip her up. She followed her, watched her movements, trying to find something, anything, that would solidify her suspicion. The more she focused on Sarah, the more convinced she became of her guilt, even if the facts didn't entirely support it. The town needed someone to blame, and Sarah was an easy target. The day Sarah was arrested, the air was thick with tension. Officer Miller, driven by her ambition and the need to appease the town, wrote her official statement. In it, she didn't outright lie, but she certainly stretched the truth. She amplified the neighbor's vague description, stating that the witness had clearly identified Sarah near the antique store on the night of the burglary. She omitted the witness's uncertainty and emphasized the supposed resemblance. She also included details about Sarah's past, painting her as a repeat offender, someone with a history of dishonest behavior. This, she reasoned, would strengthen the case against her and convince the judge to deny bail. Deep down, Emily knew she was crossing a line. The evidence wasn't strong enough, and her statement was misleading. But the pressure was immense, and the thought of failing the town was unbearable. She convinced herself that Sarah was probably guilty anyway, and that exaggerating the facts was justified to bring her to justice. The end, she told herself, justified the means. With a shaky hand, she signed a statement, sealing Sarah's fate. The wheels of justice, however, Sarah felt a wave of panic wash over her. She was innocent, but no one seemed to believe her. She tried to call her family, but they couldn't afford a lawyer. She felt alone and helpless, trapped in a system that seemed determined to crush her. The sounds of the jail, the clanging of metal doors, the shouts of inmates, the distant sirens, filled her with dread. Night fell, and the jail grew even darker and more ominous. Sarah huddled on her bunk, shivering despite the thin blanket. She closed her eyes, trying to block out the reality of her situation, but the image of Officer Miller's stern face kept flashing in her mind. She couldn't understand why she was being treated this way. She had made mistakes in the past, but she was trying to do better. Now, her past was being used against her, and her future was hanging in the balance. All she could do was wait and hope that the truth would eventually come out. Back in Willow Creek, the news of Sarah's arrest was met with a collective sigh of relief. People celebrated the quick resolution of the case, believing that justice had been served. The local newspaper ran another front-page story, praising the police department for their swift action and highlighting Officer Miller's dedication. The town council held a special ceremony, awarding Officer Miller a commendation for her outstanding service. She was hailed as a hero, a symbol of law and order. People stopped her on the street to shake her hand and thank her for making Willow Creek safe again. Emily basked in the glow of the praise, but a small voice inside her kept whispering doubts. She couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. She tried to ignore it, to convince herself that she had done the right thing, but the guilt gnawed at her conscience. The image of Sarah's face, pale and frightened, haunted her waking moments. She tried to push it away, but it kept coming back, a constant reminder of the lie she had told. The celebration felt hollow, the praise undeserved. She knew that beneath the surface of the town's relief, a dark secret was festering. Meanwhile, in the dimly lit office of the police department, Detective Reynolds, a seasoned officer with years of experience, quietly reviewed the details of the Gable antique store burglary. He had a reputation for his meticulous approach and his unwavering commitment to justice. Something about the case didn't sit right with him. He reread Officer Miller's report, paying close attention to the witness statement. He noticed inconsistencies and ambiguities that had been glossed over. The witness had admitted to poor eyesight and had only glimpsed the suspect briefly. Yet, Miller's report presented the identification as definitive. Detective Reynolds decided to dig deeper. He revisited the scene of the crime, interviewing neighbors and shopkeepers, searching for any overlooked clues. He spent hours poring over crime scene photos, looking for anything that might have been missed. He wasn't trying to undermine Officer Miller or challenge her authority. He simply wanted to ensure that the right person was behind bars. The more he investigated, the more convinced he became that Sarah Jenkins was not the culprit. The pieces of the puzzle just didn't fit. A nagging feeling in his gut told him that something was terribly wrong. He needed to find out the truth, no matter where it led. As Detective Reynolds delved deeper into the case, Officer Miller's guilt intensified. Sleep became a distant memory. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Sarah's face, etched with fear and confusion. The weight of her actions pressed down on her, suffocating her. The music box, once a symbol of the town's lost innocence, now haunted her dreams. She imagined it playing a mournful tune, a constant reminder of her betrayal of justice. She tried to distract herself with work, but the guilt followed her like a shadow. She started avoiding her colleagues, fearing that they would see the truth in her eyes. She jumped at every phone call, every unexpected knock on the door. She was living in a constant state of anxiety, waiting for the inevitable moment when her lie would be exposed. The praise and accolades she had once craved now felt like a cruel mockery. She knew that she didn't deserve them, that she had built her reputation on a foundation of deceit. The burden of her secret was becoming unbearable. She was trapped in a prison of her own making, and the walls were closing in. She needed to confess, to set things right, but the fear of the consequences held her back. The night was coming, and the guilt was consuming her. Detective Reynolds's persistent investigation began to yield results. He discovered security footage from a nearby business that showed a man matching the description of a known burglar, recently released from prison, casing Mrs. Gable's antique store just days before the break-in. The man, named Victor Martel, had a long history of similar crimes in neighboring towns. Furthermore, Reynolds found a pawn shop receipt with Martel's signature, documenting the sale of the music box that closely resembled the one stolen from Mrs. Gable's store. The evidence was mounting, and it all pointed away from Sarah Jenkins and toward Victor Martel. Reynolds presented his findings to the police chief, who was initially reluctant to believe that Officer Miller had made a mistake. But the evidence was undeniable. The chief, a man of integrity, knew that he had to do the right thing, even if it meant admitting that the department had made a serious error. He authorized Reynolds to bring Martel in for questioning. The net was closing in not just on Martel, but also on Officer Miller. The truth was about to come to light. That evening, Officer Miller couldn't bear the weight of her secret any longer. She sought out Detective Reynolds, her face pale and drawn. In a hushed voice, she confessed everything. She admitted to exaggerating the witness statement, to focusing solely on Sarah, and to ignoring the inconsistencies in the evidence. Tears streamed down her face as she recounted her actions, her voice filled with remorse. She explained the pressure she had been under, her desire to please the town and advance her career. But she also acknowledged that her ambition had blinded her to the truth and led her to make a terrible mistake. Detective Reynolds listened patiently, his expression grave. He understood the pressures of the job, but he also knew that there was no excuse for what she had done. He asked her why she had come forward now. "I can't live with this anymore," she sobbed. "Sarah doesn't deserve to be in jail. The town deserves to know the truth. I have to do what's right, even if it means losing everything." She was ready to face the consequences, to accept whatever punishment came her way. The relief of finally confessing washed over her, but it was mixed with a deep sense of shame and regret. The night was far from over, but for the first time in days, Emily felt a glimmer of hope. The following morning, Sarah was released from jail. The news spread quickly through Willow Creek. People were stunned. They had been so quick to celebrate her arrest, so eager to believe in her guilt. Now, they had to confront the possibility that they had been wrong, that an innocent woman had been wrongly accused and imprisoned. Sarah emerged from the jail, blinking in the sunlight. She looked thinner and paler than before, but her eyes held a newfound strength. She was overwhelmed by the support she received. Some people apologized to her, offering words of comfort and encouragement. Others simply nodded, acknowledging the injustice that had been done. Mrs. Gable was among the first to greet her, offering a warm embrace and tears of relief. She told Sarah that she never truly believed she was guilty and that she was grateful for her release. The town council issued a public apology, acknowledging the mistake and promising to do everything in their power to make amends. The nightmare was finally over for Sarah, but the scars of her wrongful imprisonment would likely linger for a long time. She was free, but the road to recovery would be long and arduous. Officer Miller faced severe consequences for her actions. An internal investigation was launched, and she was immediately suspended from her duties. The town council, once so quick to praise her, now condemned her actions, calling for her to be held accountable. The district attorney filed criminal charges against her, accusing her of falsifying a police report and obstructing justice. The charges carried a potential prison sentence. Her reputation, once so carefully cultivated, was now in tatters. She lost the respect of her colleagues, the trust of the community, and the career she had worked so hard to build. The weight of her actions had finally crushed her. During her trial, she pleaded guilty, accepting responsibility for her mistakes. She expressed deep remorse for the harm she had caused to Sarah and to the town. The judge, recognizing her genuine remorse and her willingness to cooperate with the investigation, sentenced her to community service and probation. It was a steep price to pay, but it was a necessary step on her path to redemption. The town felt betrayed. The aftermath of the scandal shook the Willow Creek Police Department to its core. The chief, deeply saddened by the events, initiated a comprehensive review of the department's policies and procedures. He wanted to ensure that such a miscarriage of justice never happened again. New training programs were implemented, focusing on ethical conduct, evidence handling, and the importance of unbiased investigations. Officers were reminded of their duty to uphold the law and protect the rights of all citizens, regardless of their past. A system of checks and balances was introduced, requiring multiple officers to review arrest reports and witness statements to prevent the falsification or exaggeration of evidence. The department also established a citizen review board to provide oversight and ensure accountability. The scandal served as a wake-up call, forcing the police department to confront its flaws and commit to reform. The process was painful and difficult, but it was necessary to restore the public's trust and ensure that justice was served fairly and impartially. The police officers felt bad about what happened. After her release, Sarah struggled to rebuild her life. The stigma of being wrongly accused lingered, making it difficult for her to find a job or rent an apartment. People whispered behind her back, casting suspicious glances her way. But Sarah was determined not to let her past define her. She enrolled in a community college, pursuing her dream of becoming a social worker. She wanted to help others who had been marginalized and mistreated by the system. She found solace in a support group for wrongly accused individuals, where she connected with others who had experienced similar injustices. They shared their stories, offering each other encouragement and understanding. Slowly but surely, Sarah began to heal. She learned to forgive those who had wronged her, including Officer Miller. She realized that holding on to anger and resentment would only hold her back. She focused on the future, determined to make a positive impact on the world. She wanted to make a difference. She learned to trust again. Years later, after completing her community service and probation, Emily Miller sought a way to atone for her past actions. She couldn't erase what she had done, but she could dedicate her life to helping others who had been wrongly accused. She became a paralegal, working for a nonprofit organization that provided legal assistance to individuals facing wrongful convictions. She poured her heart and soul into her work, using her knowledge of the system to help those who had been failed by it. She often thought about Sarah, wondering how she was doing. She knew that she could never fully make amends for the pain she had caused, but she hoped that her work would somehow contribute to a more just and equitable system. One day, she received a letter from Sarah. In it, Sarah wrote that she had forgiven Emily and that she admired her for turning her life around. She said that she hoped that Emily's experience would serve as a reminder to others of the importance of truth and justice. Emily cried when she read the letter. It was a sign that she was finally on the right path, that she was finally finding redemption. She was very happy to read the letter. And so, Willow Creek learned a valuable lesson about the importance of truth, justice, and forgiveness. The town slowly healed, its sense of community restored. The police department emerged stronger and more ethical, committed to protecting the rights of all citizens. Sarah went on to become a successful social worker, dedicating her life to helping those who had been marginalized and mistreated. She never forgot her experience, but she refused to let it define her. Emily found redemption in her work, helping others who had been wrongly accused. She never forgot the pain she had caused, but she found solace in knowing that she was making a difference. The music box, recovered from the pawn shop, was returned to Mrs. Gable. It became a symbol of hope and resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, justice can prevail and forgiveness can heal. The story of Officer Miller's false statement served as a cautionary tale, a reminder that ambition and pressure should never come at the expense of truth and justice. Willow Creek remembered to never repeat their mistakes. The town was now a safe place,